Hello. I can't see you there. Have you been there this whole time?
Where's the camera?
I don't know. Where's the sun? I thought the sun was supposed to be blocked by the moon right now. I can't see you guys. Oh, there you are. You've been there. All right, there you go. Hi. Welcome to Dragon Talk. We're goofballs and can't see anything. I'm starting to be tweeting that we're starting right now. Welcome to the show. How are you guys doing? Did you have a good weekend? Did you see the sun? Did you see the sun get blocked by a large thing?
It's called the moon.
Well, I was gonna maybe it's Abir or Toril. Selune, yes, the little shards of moon.
Saloon.
The tears of Saloon. This is the lore you should know part of the segment, and that is where me, Greg Tito, talks to Mr. Chris Perkins and Mr. Matt Cernat about lore stuff. But before we get into actually recording that segment, we'll do a little bit of announcements as soon as I tweet this. How are you guys doing in the chat? Doing good? Yeah? You think so? How about you guys? Did you have a good weekend? I talked to Chris about his weekend already. What about you, Matt? How did you do this weekend?
Did fine. Didn't really do a whole lot besides clean the house.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of house cleaning going on here in the offices.
I guess we did go to some museums on the weekend. That was fun.
Ooh, cool. What museum?
We went to the Mopop here in Seattle, and then also the Museum of Science, whatever it's called.
Did you see? There's a lot of D&D stuff there at Mopop. I heard.
There is indeed, yes. A bunch of stuff from D&D in their fantasy exhibit.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What was the favorite thing you didn't know was there that you saw?
I hadn't realized that they were doing a David Bowie thing. So there's a thing about photography of David Bowie. That was fun to watch.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, it's just a little thing they've got going on now.
Any photography like from the set of Labyrinth?
No, it's just one photographer's shoots are of David Bowie during the period of Ziggy Stardust and that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I love that Flight of the Conchords episode where they go through like 3 different versions of Bowie. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's what's his name? Brett. No, Jermaine Clement does like 3 different versions of Bowie, like coming to the other one in a dream. It's like, hi, I'm 1982 David Bowie from the set of Labyrinth.
First concert I ever saw was David Bowie concert.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a good first one. What tour was it?
Glass Spider.
Oh, that was late 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My first concert was Van Halen.
Nice.
Not David Lee Roth Van Halen. Sammy Hagar Van Halen from the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not as awesome as one that I'm like, yeah, put that one in the memory banks forever.
Yeah.
Right here. No, right now. That's what it was, right now. All right, so we are going to get into the segment proper right about now. We're recording already, right, Ryan? Nice. We are going to make it happen right about now. Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know. I am Greg Tito, and this segment is where we jump into Dungeons & Dragons lore, speaking to the people who make it right now, right?
Yep.
How's it going, Chris?
Pretty good.
Nice. We have Chris Perkins, then we have
Matt Cernat.
Hello.
Howdy.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Today, in celebration of Tomb of Annihilation coming out very soon, we're going to talk about a character that is behind you.
Him.
He is named Acererak.
Yes.
And
and some players are fond of saying Acererak.
Acererak.
Yes.
For me, it's always Acererak because that's how I remember how to spell it.
Oh, I need a mnemonic for how to spell it because I have misspelled his name many a time. And oddly enough, it's not in spell check.
Yeah.
It is not in the dictionary.
Yeah, it's a major shortcoming of our dictionary.
Exactly. And so I'm going to add it to it very soon. But we're going to talk about that character, where he began. We covered this a little bit when we were talking about Tales from the Yawning Portal and the Tomb of Horrors module in there and where it came from. But we're going to delve a little bit more into his story in this little segment here. So was that the first place that he appeared, was in the Tomb of Horrors publication?
Yep. That was a first edition invention, 1978, I think, was the original publication.
Yep.
And
what month? So that's when I was born. I was born at the same time as.
And it was originally a whatchamacallit?
Tournament
module,
yeah.
right?
Hence its unforgiving nature.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Acererak appears at the end, and it's kind of like the last gotcha of the adventure, which is full of gotchas. So you expect to maybe go fight this lich and so on, and you open up the room, and there's a skull with some gems in its eye sockets and teeth, and it's just sitting on sort of some dust on like a pillar or something like that. And that's it.
That's him.
That's
That's his phylactery.
Yeah, then he floats up and steals your soul, and you all die, and you wonder why you spent the last, 8 hours going through this story.
And killed as many characters as you have. To get there.
The ways in which you can damage and kill Acererak in the adventure at the end there are
Highly specific.
just ridiculous. Like everything you do gives him power. Every attack you make gives him power, unless you have a holy avenger or like a few other things, and it's just super specific. And basically you're just screwed.
The adventure basically says, now is the time for the characters to run away.
And if they don't, kill them all.
Yeah.
Exactly. So was he a character that, or a like type of character that had been used before, or is this brand new?
No, in fact, in this form, which is called a demi-lich, which is essentially I don't want to say a lesser lich, but a lich that has lost most of its physical form. This was the first appearance of that creature in the game.
Right.
Okay.
And then in the second edition, well, I guess it's still first edition, but it's Monster Manual 2. The write-up for it basically describes a demi-lich and pretty much just describes Acererak in the dungeon. And there's a vague hint to the idea that the soul of the lich has passed on to some place else and gone somewhere. Who knows? It's mysterious.
Right. This is like a remnant.
And it's just the physical remains that are left over.
I see. So now was this done on purpose? Like becoming a lich is a very long process. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit too, as to far as how powerful wizards who don't care about good or bad in any way are like, oh, I can live forever if I become a lich.
Yes, powerful evil wizards in particular can undergo the ritual of lichdom because it's such a terrible ritual. Few good wizards even attempt it, nor would they want to live in that form necessarily. But yes, if you're of an evil bent and you have sufficient power, and in earlier editions you had to have certain ability scores in addition to being a certain level of wizard before you could even hope to survive. In later editions we said that there's a lich making process which is very highly secret, but if you do learn it from Orcus or whoever, and you are at least to this level, you can become a lich. You basically retain your spellcasting abilities and you undergo the physical transformation into undeath. And in order to sustain yourself and protect yourself, you need to craft a phylactery as part of this process of transformation. And it thereafter protects you in such a way that if your physical form is destroyed or slain, the phylactery will rejuvenate you.
And that just grows new flesh? Is that
You
how it
become
works?
essentially what you were before you were destroyed, which is an undead lich creature.
Yeah, and I mean, it with the advent of 5th edition, we have the idea that essentially liches can maintain a sort of more mortal-looking form by feeding souls semi-regularly to their phylactery and essentially destroying those souls in order to sort of keep their bodies looking lifelike. And some liches choose to do so, and many of them kind of forget after a while, or they forget a few times, and things start going south.
Souls are basically lich collagen.
And then that idea essentially is why liches become demi-liches, because eventually they've forgotten, and they don't, and so
they let themselves go.
They let themselves go. They're like, we're not going to win any balls. We're not going to win any pageants here. Who cares?
Because the whole point of becoming a lich is to become immortal.
Yeah.
And yet there was this weird idea of demi-liches, like where did that come from? And so second edition kind of has an answer for Acererak, which is that in Return to the Tomb of Horrors, his soul has gone off into the astral plane and to do other things. Basically to, I think his plan is to gain control of all of the undead in the world or something along those lines. But the idea is that his soul's left into the astral plane. It has a physical body in the astral plane. It can go to other planes and stuff like that. And then he's just let his body deteriorate. But like, why did his body deteriorate? I don't know.
Right. They're magical. They shouldn't just be governed by the laws of physical nature like that.
So with 5th edition, we sort of went back to the drawing board with the Lich and the Demi-Lich, and sort of followed the through line of that story. And early on figured that out, that we wanted to have Liches do this and Demi-Liches be this, and this is what Acererak is.
Got it.
And there was I think we even contemplated putting Acererak into the monster manual at one point.
He is, actually.
Well, he's on the monster manual.
But he's on the DMG.
Well, right.
And the stats for the Demi-Lich have with them a sidebar on Acererak in particular, and what makes him unique.
Okay. So I thought we were going to do like a full write-up for him or something like that at some point.
We did a full write-up for him in Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Of course, right.
Yeah. This makes much more sense now. So it's. I mean, I almost want to think about like the idea of like astronauts, like when they go up into the space, they have to exercise, or their muscles will like waste away, and it's the same for liches in a way. It's like after a while, things start to deteriorate until you're just your spirit.
Yes.
And a lot of the individuals who choose to become liches are doing so in pursuit of magical knowledge and power and stuff like that, and they're often kind of super evil. So they've divested themselves of a lot of social connections anyway. So eventually, as long as you can turn a page, who cares what color your fingers are? Like, if they have flesh on them,
you can read.
Whatever.
Now, now Acererak's body and soul went into the astral plane, but there's some shard of him left. Does he have consciousness in both places? Is it like a Dr. Manhattan type situation where he's split?
So the theory was that it's kind of like the astral projection spell. And in that spell, you have a body that's left behind, and you have a soul that goes off in the astral plane and trail behind you this silvery cord and do that kind of thing. And that soul in the astral plane has a physical form. And then that can go into other planes and do other things and stuff like that. So that was the general idea.
But does the right hand know what the left hand is doing? Like, does the astral plane version know what the one Demi-Lich version that's left?
Yeah, I think that I think it depends on the addition, the degree to which. But I know that you can kill somebody who's astrally traveling, and that's bad for them, obviously.
Generally,
yeah, you can like attack their body while they're basically comatose. But
got it.
But that's not the case with the Demi-Lich, obviously. So that's sort of a different thing.
Now, you mentioned the sidebar about what makes Acererak unique. What are some of those things that make him unique?
I don't know. I don't have that sidebar in front of me. And
Dang it.
I wrote it so long ago, I don't remember.
You have such an encyclopedic knowledge almost all the time.
He has, basically, the Demi-Lich in the Monster Manual is, I think, a CR21 threat, and it's got a number of abilities. It's a pretty beefy stat block. But to reflect the fact that Acererak can do other things, at least historically, the sidebar basically encapsulated his ability to do those things. I don't remember.
I see. So it was like a way of like being like, okay, this one's a little bit different, and this is how you can kind of deal with the older
The sidebar
adventures.
in the Monster Manual just says, the Acererak is like this Demi-Lich. Use this stat block, but here are a couple other little things you need to know that make him special and stand apart.
Got it.
I don't think, for example, in 5th edition, all Demi-Liches trap the soul and things like that, and whereas Acererak does.
Correct, yes.
By trap the soul, you mean by capturing it into
a gemstone that's embedded in your skull, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Acererak is still bound to a phylactery.
He does have a phylactery, although because he plays a prominent role in Tomb of Annihilation, one of the questions we had to ask is, where is his phylactery? And Tomb of Annihilation says it's very, 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 very well hidden, but we don't say where. Because the story of Tomb of Annihilation isn't go kill Acererak and destroy his phylactery. There's something else going on. And
well, now you just assured that every player is going to be like, well, I want to find it and kill him.
Good luck with that.
Good luck.
It's a closely guarded secret, and ultimately it's left to the DM to decide if and when the phylactery shows up.
Yeah, I mean,
it's this teacup, isn't it?
It's this teacup. I'm actually drinking the souls of Acererak's phylactery.
So you'll never get it. Unless you come to, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, Acererak is known for a lot of dead ends and tricks and
and red herrings
and stuff like that. So like you could look for his soul in 1,000 dungeons and still just never find it. So it's yeah.
The other interesting thing about Acererak, of course, is he originated in an adventure that was nominally set in Greyhawk, the world of Orth, but we assume, or Oith, if you're pronounce it that way.
If you're Scottish.
Yeah. And Democrats say it one way, Republicans say it the other. I don't understand why. But
it's called the holding off.
yes, but because he is a planar traveler, it's not a leap to think that he has landed on different worlds in the material plane and influenced those worlds in weird ways.
Yeah. And so him traveling to the Forgotten Realms.
Not beyond the pale.
Yes. Is that...
If Mordenkainen can travel to Ed Greenwood's kitchen in Canada, then Acererak can travel from Oath to Toril.
If Chewbacca lives on Kashyyyk, you must acquit.
Yes.
Yes. So what about, say when someone encounters Acererak, you already mentioned it, they should run. But what do you think would happen? Like what signpost does his involvement? Yeah, but what does that mean for a player character if they're encountering Acererak or have rumors of Acererak's influence?
Acererak has certain quirks that are common, and they're kind of just things that Acererak likes. So Sphere of Annihilation is one of those things. The sort of green devil mask, which you can kind of see parts of on the back wall there.
Yeah.
That is Acerek's sort of symbol, to a degree.
His holy symbol.
Yeah. There's the idea of four-armed gargoyles. There's a sort of a juggernaut-like thing that rolls through places and crushes things. Acererak likes false doors. It's a thing.
It's just a thing he likes.
Just a thing.
Yeah.
So if you meet somebody and they have some sort of telltale things like that green devil face, as it's called, that's a sign that they're up to no good and you're in deep trouble.
Got it. And he is. What are his goals? What does he want, other than just knowledge?
In the original Tomb of Horrors, he didn't want much other than to kill adventurers in his tomb and delight in their destruction. Mm-hmm. He's a bit of a, I don't want to call him an imp because that's kind of, but his goals are often to be the instrument of adventurers' demise. There's something about watching highfalutin heroes who think they're the hot shit just get trampled into the ground and put away by insidious, horrible, often unpredictable traps. We sort of concluded, based on our own experiences playing through Tomb of Horrors, that the capture and consumption of adventurers' souls is a thing with him. In Tomb of Annihilation, which is set, of course, in the Forgotten Realms, unless you decide to place it elsewhere, his goals are a little bit different. Here, we have this story where he found something while traveling in the cosmos and thought it was delightful. This horrible, horrible undead thing, this sort of dead godling, and he brought it back and stowed it away somewhere and is nourishing it with souls to bring it to life again in a fashion. And so there's this father-son kind of thing happening.
Oh, it's heartwarming.
Yeah, heartwarming is not the word I would choose.
It's a coming-of-age story.
When you see this creature, no, heartwarming is not the word that will spring to mind. But this idea of a lot of liches pursue power for the sake of pursuing power. There are some, like Zastam of Thay, who pursue it as a path toward godhood. Acererak is not Zastam. He's not looking to become a god, but he is trying to create one.
I see.
So what's better than being a god? Well, the father of gods, right, I guess, is a way to go. So that's what he's currently up to.
All right. Anything else on him before we put him to bed and or destroy him outright?
You can meet him in Tomb of Annihilation.
You can?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does his voice sound like?
Oh, geez.
Not to put you on the spot, but you can
probably.
describe it.
I'd have to say he probably sounds like Skeletor in my mind.
Skeletor. Yeah, he always sounds like Skeletor was like this, laughable creature. Like his voice was funny to me.
Yeah, sort of high and nasally, and sort of "I'll get you and your little dogs too" kind of sound. I sort
That's
of
not the headcanon that I had.
no.
Right?
Whenever I think of him, for some reason, I always think of Skeletor.
There's a lot of crossover there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think in any way, I mean, just because we've been mentioning liches and phylacteries and shards of being, I go towards what J.K. Rowling wrote in her story with the Horcruxes and things like that. Do you see those motifs throughout other pieces of fantasy?
Like the lich and the phylactery kind of a thing?
Yeah, like it seemed that was very much like what was happening in those books.
Yeah.
I can certainly see a connection between Horcruxes and Voldemort and phylacteries and liches. There does seem to be some similarity there, the idea of basically putting a piece of yourself for your own protection hidden somewhere. I don't know where that traces back to mythologically.
Yeah, or like how it got into D&D exactly. Like I'm not sure of the origins of the idea of lichdom in D&D. That's mysterious to me.
Yeah, me too. We got to get to the bottom of that because I feel like there's a lot of fun stories that could be told there, and the puzzles as well. Like the idea that like you have to hide something that has a way to get to it in case you needed to find it, or you had allies that you needed to find your phylactery. You needed, there needs to be a pathway. How could dungeon masters use some of those ideas and those things that may not necessarily be using Acererak, but like, how to use liches in your game to enhance it in a way?
Well, one of the things you can do is liches are very high-level threats, so chances are you're not going to fight one until the end of your adventuring career. So if you want them to actually figure prominently in the campaign, you've either got to have, the powerful lich that everybody knows about that's sort of locked away in a dungeon somewhere, this ancient evil wizard who is constantly exerting his power over the land, almost like a tyrant, or you've got to, you could have liches basically against one another. In the Forgotten Realms, that's kind of a big deal. Liches are always vying against each other for scraps of ancient magic and lore and stuff like that. And so you have sort of lich-on-lich warfare going on with adventurers caught in the middle.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's, liches, if they manage to feed souls regularly to their phylactery, maintain their fleshy form. So the only thing that really gives them away is that there's sort of that cold blue pinprick of light in the back of their eyes, right? And it's the kind of thing that you don't see all the time. So you could imagine a lich just being a character in a city, the local wizard or the ruler or whatever, possibly that you could have characters whose family have long guarded the blah blah blah, which happens to actually be the lich's phylactery, right? There's lots of interesting ways to play with that idea if you want to do that. Because the phylactery itself only needs to be a little thing. It's like, and I guess the details of it, there's sort of like a silver inside. It's like a silver box, and the insides of the silver box are inscribed with runes. And then the soul of the lich or the blood of the lich or something like that is inside that little box. Okay. And then whatever else is around it is whatever else is around it. So is that the pommel of a sword? Is it, hidden inside a statue? Is it, what? It could be anything.
Yeah, one interesting plot is to give that a DM can work with is the idea that somehow a lich's phylactery ends up in the character's possession, and all that they can do is basically try to keep it out of the lich's grasp while it's sending minions off to get it.
That's a way to have it be part of the low-level part of the campaign.
Yeah, and the characters may not even know at first that they have it. They just found this thing that looks like an unopenable box or whatever.
Right. Something valuable is inside.
Right, and they take it to Candlekeep or some other place where there's a sage to find out what it is, and the sage is like, yeah, you better bury that somewhere.
Do not
flush
open
that down a toilet.
Yeah.
One day, some other adventurers kill the lich, and it appears next to the box. Give me the box.
Yeah. Exactly.
Give it here.
Actually, that's actually a smart idea. Lich should just kill himself, and then he appears next to the box 1d10 days later.
Oh, that's a really smart idea. Yeah. How come more liches don't do that?
Well, most of them are smart enough not to lose their phylactery.
I guess that's true. Right, yeah. I lost my keys. Damn it.
Yes. And then because liches are so consumed with their own, pursuits, even an evil lich is not necessarily likely to destroy a random party of adventurers unless they meddle in its affairs. Like, you could go to Candlekeep in the quest for a spell book or some other ancient lore, and there might be a lich there.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey. And you're like, hey.
Yeah, Forgotten Realms does have quite a few good liches. There's the elven version of it called a Baelnorn, and those are sort of like, I hesitate to say they're necessarily good, but they are elves that have been sworn to sort of guard particular things for eternity and so on, and so they take that upon themselves and do it. And then there are a couple of other liches in the world that are not necessarily super evil, but should I mention who they are? I guess I should. There's a couple of groups. There are a couple of things. One is there's the what are they? The Knights of Thornhold and so on. Help me out, Chris.
Samular?
Yeah, the Knights of Samular. So the Knights of Samular appeared to a degree in the was it Prince of the Apocalypse? Did they show up in there a little bit?
Yes, they made an appearance in there. Yep.
And one of their founders is actually a lich.
Oh.
He was saved on the battlefield by his brother when they had a great big battle. His brother basically fed him the potion that turned him into a lich as sort of the final piece of the ritual. And then he went into hiding, essentially. And so his sort of magically protected tower, which is held as sort of a holy place by the Knights of Samular, this sort of group of good guy knights and paladins and stuff like that, actually has a lich living in it, and he's still there.
Yes, his name is Renwick Caradun, is that right?
Yes, White Cloak, I think, is his nickname. Yeah.
And he's just living forever, protecting what he's protecting, and has a phylactery.
He's engaged in something. I don't know, doing some sort of research. Who knows? He likes to read a lot, apparently.
And he's got lots of time to do it now. Right.
And the other one is a character that's it's a little known that this is true, but it is true. Agaron, the founder, essentially the founding father of Waterdeep, is also a lich and is also in a tower in the middle of the city that's magically protected, still there.
Never comes out.
He's just doing his thing.
He's just doing his thing. And he's not evil. Ish. You two had the exact same reaction.
If he's killed anybody recently in the last few thousand years.
He did turn himself into a lich, and he has somehow been feeding his phylactery with souls. So you know, like.
But they were all bad.
Every single one of them. They deserved it. They deserve to get absorbed into that. I mean, that's an interesting idea. I mean, because you're all a little bit evil to do something like this, but could it be done for noble and lawful good reasons?
Right.
And
certainly there are ways to procure essentially what are evil souls. So, for example, night hags are engaged in the trade of larvae, and larvae are basically evil souls that have been sent to Hades or hell, or I think maybe mostly just Hades. Mm-hmm. But basically, they pick them up off the ground essentially, and sell those to demons and devils or whomever else wants them. Yeah. And liches, there's one of the
liches get a discount.
One of the people who want them.
They get the elderly discount. Yeah.
The blue light special.
So you're eating evil souls and destroying them. That still sounds pretty evil. And you're kind of whatever you're doing, whatever you're giving back to these night hags, you're supporting this weird evil industry of like, what is she doing with whatever she's getting from you?
Yeah, where does she get it from?
I mean, there's a way for a basically evil character to say, I'm not evil, I'm doing this for good reasons, but they're still kind of you're still
ends
evil.
Justify the means, or the means justify. Yeah, exactly right. Do you think have you guys ever had a player character in one of your campaigns that wanted to become a lich?
Oh, over the years, yeah, a couple.
Have you let them do it?
No.
Why?
It's sort of were I to, it would kind of like be kind of a campaign ender for that character. It's like you're sunsetting that character. He's going to go off and become a lich, and if I ever ran a sequel campaign, maybe that lich would play a role somehow.
Oh, be the bad guy.
But it's not like I've had a character become a lich and then remain a fully functioning member of the party.
Continue to hang out. Hey, what's going on? Oh, I dropped my crystal. Dang it.
Halfling rogue, our Goliath barbarian, and our lich.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just
I mean,
just doesn't work that way.
There is, what was it in Sword Coast Legends? There was the necromancer with a heart of gold. That whole idea that, like, all right, well, yes, you can raise the dead, but you may have good intentions behind what you're doing. But it sounds like, it would end up killing that campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a good ending one. To be like, I don't want to become a lich,
Yeah.
but I became one.
If you're wrapping up the high-level campaign and the wizard wants to go off to become a lich, hey, knock yourself out. That's great. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, maybe that's what's happening to Acererak this whole time, is that he was a hero at one point, and so now he just delights in killing heroes. Who knows?
Yeah, his backstory is really weird. It's convoluted, and it got added to and changed over the years.
At some
and
point he was a tiefling, and then he was a human again.
And a cambion, and like it just just over the years, just all kinds of different things happened. At one point, he hung out with some Warforged.
In Eberron?
Yeah.
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 So, in our current incarnation, did those things happen, or is it?
So one of the things that we did in looking back at the lore for Acererak for 5th edition and Liches, Demi-Liches was kind of like look at all that stuff that was done in the publication history and say, okay, we're looking at the totality of it. Sometimes in the past, when we were creating products, some author would look at the 1 or 2 books that they had on their shelves available to them. Well, we were able to go back and look through everything that's been done and said for Acererak through the years. And looking at the totality of that, you could see the through line of, it makes sense that liches need to have souls, then they become demi-liches. Acererak is this guy who seems to be really interested in killing adventurers. Why does he kill adventurers? Maybe he wants their souls or something like that. Why does he need that? He's doing these different things and so on and so forth. And you can kind of see the whole through line there. I don't think we kept the idea that Acererak is somehow a tiefling or a cambion at all, because that was just a bit weird in the history of the character.
Yeah, it just seemed like a weird branch that didn't go anywhere.
I see.
In the canon, and
Right.
it was counteracted later on. And then, although just in terms of intellectual discussion, it made for some interesting conversations. Like we talked about the idea that, and we never committed to this, but the idea that maybe his fascination with the devil face is somehow tied to his origins. Like it wasn't a random symbol. Like somehow he's got some tie to devils, but we don't know what it is. And as we got down, it started to get a little bit weird and melodramatic. Like maybe his dad was a devil, and the first image he had in his mind was this face staring down at him, and that face is what he, that's the thing that he clings to sort of understand his own history. But then it's like, oh fuck it, he's just a.
Yeah. At the point at which you're imagining baby Acererak in bed and like a bearded devil leering over him, it's like,
I'm your daddy.
No.
It's like, we've gone too far. Turns out that's not what's important about Acererak. Yeah.
So you basically took all the versions of him, and
honestly, it stripped a lot of the mystery out of the symbol. Like, why explain something that's never been clearly explained before if you don't have to? Why not just leave it a mystery and let the people muse about what it means?
And then do things like this and give the people the ideas, and then all of a sudden it becomes the canon for that person's table because they like that idea or something like that. It seems to make much more sense than rather than.
But if you like Devil Daddy staring down at baby Acererak in his little bone crypt crib, go for it.
I kind of dig that.
Take that idea and roll with it.
I'm going to use it. I'm totally going to.
I think it's probably made of gold because, like that couch that's in the Tomb of Horrors of the Ritual Adventure, it's made of gold.
Yeah.
That's then you got to tie it all together.
Yes.
Every detail needs to make sense.
Yes. Speaking of details that make sense, just in closing, so Acererak being a world traveler, one of the things we did in Tomb of Annihilation was there is a big tomb, and we wanted to preserve one of the key aspects of the original tomb, which was like you could never predict what was in the next room.
Yeah.
The idea that Acererak collects things from his journey through the multiverse and the cosmos, and those things are so multivaried that there's almost no sense to it. It's like going into Bruce Wayne's manor, going from room to room, and he's got statues from this part of Earth and statues from this part of Earth.
Big giant penny.
Big giant penny. It's like, what the Acererak's very much the same way.
Yeah.
And so the Tomb of Annihilation, room to room, you get a lot of different sort of cultural mashups, and I think that's part of the charm of the tomb.
And he'll collect it from not just Forgotten Realms, but from all over the planes.
Yeah. You're like, this architect was pretty crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of inebriants in Schultz that made him want to build that way. All right. Well, thank you guys for that deep dive on Lichdom and Acererak. Good stuff. If people want to get in touch with you and ask you more questions, how do they get that to you, Mr.
I am on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
I'm on Twitter at Cernet. SERNETT.
That's right. And I'm at Greg Tito. Don't ask me anything about where my phylactery is, please. Thanks, guys. We'll be back with more lore soon. All righty.
All right.
That was a deep dive.
I still can't see the camera.
It's in darkness, imprisoning me. So I don't think we have time to do a second one.
That's okay, because we sort of absorbed the two topics into one.
We did, because we were going to do all the motifs and things about Tomb of Horror, so that kind of made sense. This will be just a larger lore.
Did we talk about the different weird monsters and things yet? I felt like we did talk about
you were out when we did that.
We did.
So if you guys want to stick around for another 20 minutes, we can always do some Q&A. I think people would love to ask any kind of lore question. So anybody in the chat, feel free to throw out some questions to these gents. They got 20 minutes, so throw it in when you can. In the meantime, I'm going to do some announcements so I can get those out of the way, so you guys know what's going on in D&D world this week. D&D Beyond is out.
Yes.
It's out.
Yeah,
it's
it
in, like Flynn. Tons of people have not downloaded, but I've opened up the page and have loved it. So I suggest you do that too. One of the coolest things about it that I don't know if everybody knows, but there's a pronunciation guide that both of you, I think, worked on with them getting the good pronunciation out there. We're talking to ourselves.
Sorry.
So working with Marisha Ray and Matthew Mercer to record the actual real pronunciations of how you say it out loud.
There was an old pronunciation guide kicking around that was done back in the TSR novels era.
Yeah.
And then...
So that was updated and included some fifth stuff.
It got reviewed. Some pronunciations that were suspect got reconsidered.
Got it.
And then, Matt and Marisha did the voice work.
The one that I mentioned this last week, but Sahuagin. Sahuagin. I never thought it was. I never thought it was a who. I always thought it was a how.
Yes.
Sahaugen or something like that.
That's a tough one. I get asked that one a lot on Twitter.
Yeah. So
I get that at least once every 4 months.
Well, hopefully now with D&D out, it's D&D Beyond out, and the pronunciation guide's like once a year. Let's hope. We cut that down.
But despite the fact that pronunciation guides out there, people can honestly pronounce things as they want. I mean, their world.
Call them Drow or Dro.
I've heard a lot of Dro. Yeah. Droels. And you're like, it can make sense. But I do suggest you check out D&D Beyond. You can create characters in there. It works with homebrew stuff. So I think that's one of like the killer features in there is that if you had a spell that you've been always using in your campaign and you couldn't use it in a guide, in a character builder, you can do that now with D&D Beyond and share your stuff with other people so that other people can use homebrew stuff. Tons of fun.
Yep.
Definitely is all about what D&D is about there. So
I think people will be inventing a lot of 9th level Eclipse spells
after today.
In the next couple of days.
For sure. PAX West live show is coming up.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. September 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. It'll be broadcast on this. It'll be on this channel, but it is from the PAX channel from Real. We'll be hosting it there. And you got to play with Strix and the gang.
Right, yes. We did a podcast as a little, I want to call it a prequel to the live game, where Strix from the Waffle Crew was brought into the Acquisitions Inc. fold and has now gone on an adventure with Omen, Jim, and Viari. And so we ended at a certain point in that podcast, and the live game will just pick up where that point left off.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. And Omen Drawn will be drawn right into it.
Yes.
Did you?
And the way things are shaping up between Jim Dark Magic and Strix, I'm not sure how that relationship is going to end, but probably not well.
I think pain.
Yes.
It'll end in pain.
Yes, and those who don't know, Holly has been very, very busy crafting all of the new accoutrements that Strix found in her 50 years trapped in Barovia.
Yes.
So
I can't wait for a gallery of all those amazing things. She is such a creative person. I love all the stuff she puts out there.
Yeah. And speaking of costume stuff, Danny Hartel, who's been guesting on Waffle Crew, is bringing my PAX West costume on Wednesday.
This Wednesday?
This Wednesday.
2 days from now?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
To see if it fits. Yeah.
Will there be large spines that will prevent you from turning your head?
I'm sure there will be something just wonderfully impractical about the costume.
Like the thing that you need to pick up dice and small miniatures.
Yes.
Like,
the spines were They weren't that bad. Once you got used to them, I just stopped turning my head and started just moving my entire upper torso.
Exactly.
That worked fine.
If you don't know what we're talking about, watch the PAX West live show.
The last one from last year, when I had
year.
the dragon samurai costume. And
Yeah.
The one before that, which was the mushroom hat, that was even more annoying because the hat was just about 2 inches taller than your average door height. So every time I'd walk through a door backstage, it's like bonk, bonk,
Nice.
bonk.
Danny says this costume is so practical. I promise in the
she's
chat.
on.
So
There you
that
go.
means
All right.
all right, we're good to go. Thank you,
All
thank
right.
you, Danny, for making it practical this time. There's a couple of questions up in here. DM Greeny asks, "Does Acererak have any children before he became a lich?"
None of which we're aware.
Okay. His family tree may have been squashed out, or maybe he just
It's
outlived
possible.
them.
Yeah, it's possible. He doesn't strike me as a family man.
But you only know him, post lichdom. Maybe he loved his children, and
People don't change, not that way.
you never know. Maybe it was the death of his child that turned him into lichdom. Maybe that made him go evil.
One of the versions of his early life is just filled with tragedy and horror. So,
So yes, he did have.
yeah, it doesn't seem like in that version of the history of his life that even there he would have been pretty much any kind of family man.
He is one of the biggest dicks in D&D. So if he could find Mrs. Right and settle down and have kids, that would be quite an accomplishment.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, I loved that nomenclature discussion in the Game of Thrones episode last night about dick.
Don't
especially.
talk to me about.
It was just about slang in the
Okay.
in the realm that I was like, oh, that's funny. That different words for different things. Spoiler alert. Anyway, here's another question. Are you guys involved in localization in any way? So when sometimes get things changed around, lost in translation, do they check with you guys?
Nope.
No. Well, we do have communication with the partners who do this sort of thing.
Right. Yes.
So if they have questions about a lore, what something means, they can come to you and be like, "What does this mean actually in English?" So that, or get a better understanding of that, so then they can translate that into other languages. That's the idea in the current incarnation, but
Yeah.
you're right. Nothing has really quite materialized in that way just yet.
No, and my Portuguese sucks.
But your German, spot on. Very good. Everybody should be learning that right now. So here's an interesting one. How would a Path of the Zealot barbarian work in the current time where resurrections are being punished? I guess so in Chult in the Tomb of Annihilation story.
If you die, you die. So your zealotry will be short-lived.
You can be a zealot as much as you want, but it won't help.
There's no escape.
All right, well, that's an easy answer.
Yeah.
Your zealotry best be curtailed a bit. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep.
All right. Well, here, maybe this is one for you, Matt. This is by Tormented by Gnomes. What's your favorite underutilized aspect of the D&D canon?
Good grief.
just the words, good grief. They need to be in all adventures from now on.
What flashed in my mind was that scene from The Matrix where they're like guns, lots of guns, and
Yeah.
But there are guns. There are so many things in there.
yeah. There's just so much that's out there to be mined and used. There's so many in Forgotten Realms or just general D&D stuff. I mean, there's just so many ideas.
You seem to have a fondness for the weird worlds of realm space.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, like the ones that are completely out there that haven't really infected a lot of the adventures that we've been writing now.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody else further up in the stream asked about, are we thinking about doing any other campaign worlds in the Forgotten Realms, something along those lines? And the answer to that question is all the time. But what's in the plans are in the plans, and what's in the cards are in the cards. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're always thinking about things like Spelljammer and Ravenloft, and I think about Mask of the Red Death every other day.
What's Mask of the Red Death?
Mask of the Red Death is a Victorian era campaign setting that was attached to Ravenloft in second edition.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's very much in the lines of a lot of the television shows that have been out lately, where they take sort of the Victorian era and put the supernatural in it.
Yeah.
And in Master of Death, basically, it's all of it plus D&D in the Victorian era, and it's a lot of fun.
So it's like Sherlock Holmes,
Yep.
but even more supernaturally. All right.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Like
Was it a way
story-
of just extending the Ravenloft out? So it was like, oh, it's not just in the little bubble of Ravenloft. It was like, here's...
it was presented as basically a new campaign, a new game, really. I mean, it was nominally in Ravenloft brand-wise, but it was basically its own thing.
Yeah.
So
Second edition did have a brand problem where they were like, where do we put stuff? Right. Interesting. If DMs want Chult adventures beyond Tomb of Annihilation and Chult, where can they get it?
DM's Guild.
That is the answer.
We will be in part of our program. With DM's Guild is to have our guild adepts help us generate content that ties into Tomb of Annihilation, so that content is there and ready for dungeon masters when they're sitting down to prepare their campaigns.
Right.
And in addition to the stuff, the other stuff that will be there will also be a little. We previously talked about a product called the Tortle Package.
That's right.
Which will be up on DM's Guild. We're still trying to figure out whether it's going to be free or money going to charity. And in any event, it's got an adventure built into it.
Nice. Yeah, but I definitely think DM's Guild is the
Yes.
way to go if you want
Yes.
to expand
So
your
there's
horizons.
one of the good things about Tomb of Annihilation is the very nature of the setting of Chult leaves it ripe for all kinds of side adventures, branching adventures, loosely connected and strongly connected adventures set in that region, and we're going to be seeing a bunch of that on DM's Guild.
Sweet. And we're talking to one of our guild adepts
Yes.
in a few minutes. We're talking to Lisa Chen
Yep.
at 3 p.m. So stick around for that, and we'll see what she's been working on, as well as more about the guild adept program in general. So cool. Good question. If you don't know what Dungeon Masters Guild is, which is entirely possible.
Fair question.
Yeah. It is at dmsguild.com. It is a collection of, I guess all the Adventurers League adventures that have come out, as well as about 2 years ago we opened it up to you out there to write whatever adventure you wanted, any D&D games material.
Yeah, it's
you
basically
wanted.
a place to self-publish D&D material, and it's part of Drive-Thru RPG, where you can get not only adventure content, but all of the previous editions' D&D content in PDF form.
Yeah.
So you can buy the Jungles of Chult.
Yes.
The actual adventure, Jungles of Chult, is in there. That's right.
Yep.
Make it happen. All right, so there was one question here that I was like really wanting to ask, and I'm missing it now. Oh, that's it. Samo21 asks, what's your own favorite homebrew rules? Rules that you made up, or whether you jumped on that you kind of incorporate in all of your games that are not necessarily D&D canon.
I actually don't use a lot of house rules. There are rules that I've entertained using to either simplify the game or just to be different. And sometimes it depends on the world. Like one of the ideas I had for campaign setting was one where everybody could use some amount of magic, in which case basically having wild magic talents or free cantrips for everyone was an idea, kind of taking the spell system and expanding it to include everybody, including NPCs like schmucks in the street would have the ability to cast spells.
Oh, that's neat.
That was an idea. Other things rules-wise that I've done or entertained doing was collapsing some of the or skill lists, as well as adding new skills. Like in a campaign where piloting or driving is important, there might be some sort of driving skill, or in a campaign that had sort of quasi-scientific technology, some sort of intelligence science skill or something like that.
Yeah.
Or technology skill. So adding little additives or little subtractions to sort of reflect the nature of the world. But I've never changed the rules just for the sake of changing the rules.
There was never, obviously because you're involved in the making of those rules, so if anything really you didn't like, you would change it anyway.
Right.
But
yes.
that's what a lot of people do is that, this just didn't make sense to me, so I made a thing that made more sense.
In previous editions, before we had things like inspiration, I had systems called like hero points and things like that to basically award to players for doing special or crazy things that put their characters in jeopardy, but they did it anyway because it was either faithful to the character or it actually accomplished something cool. And so they could spend those hero points later on to gain various other benefits.
Nice.
Or to get themselves out of a scrape or a bad roll. But we have that system baked into 5th edition now, more or less, so no need for that anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always liked the idea of rolling a 1 being bad and, fumbles and that kind of a thing, but never found necessarily any particular system to be satisfying. Because, I mean, they often just sort of turn things askew when you're as a DM as opposed to, like, helping it be fun. So it ends up just being something that happens story-wise as a DM.
Right. Somebody rolls a 1, you just kind of make up something on the spot that makes sense. You don't have to stop the game to suddenly roll on a table to see what happens.
Your
look at the roll.
fell out.
Right. It's like, well,
what?
Yeah, your weapon broke. Well, he wasn't really wielding a weapon. It was his fist.
So he broke his hand?
Broke his hand,
How much
I
damage
guess?
is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. I have played with using the critical fumble and the critical hit rules from I guess it was a Dragon article back in the day, and it can be fun, but you're right, it does end up slowing
after a
down.
while it becomes tiresome and you just stop using it.
Yeah, exactly. Did you guys like Mike's initiative tinkerings that he did on Unearthed Arcana to throw away the D20 die and have your action be a die that you roll? So if you're using a two-handed weapon, it was
at some point I'm likely to try that.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's just easier for me to just go around the table at some point.
Making that harder.
Like,
that is something that I do when I'm at a convention, is we don't roll initiative. I just go around the table.
Oh, gosh,
I
that
don't
makes
have
it
to
so
write
much
anything
easier.
Down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why have I never done that before?
And if you don't want to start at the same place, just have everybody roll a die at the start of the combat.
Right.
Highest roll is where you start, and then you just go around.
Yep. And then you just change it every time you do initiative for each fight that way.
Oh, man. I
So
love that.
much
That way
easier.
everybody knows who's going next.
Yeah. It's a little dull because it's very predictable, and you can, time your actions for maximum effect.
Yeah. But with a convention game, that's not what you're worried about.
Right,
as much.
exactly. You just got to get this out of the way as quickly as possible and give everybody the maximum amount of time to actually play.
Neat. Gritty asking I said I'm asking all the controversial questions. That's right. I'm hard-hitting journalism right here. That's what's happening.
Put on my eclipse glasses.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
They live. All right. Well, thank you guys for stopping in. It's always good to pick your brains, and I'm sure the chat loved being able to do the same. So thank you for that, and we'll be back next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you. In a couple of minutes, we will switch over to an interview with Lisa Chen. So we'll give her a call up pretty soon. Shelly is out there, probably banging down the door. So it'll be very soon. We'll just take a little break. All right. See you guys in a bit.